My name is Subeida Ahmed, and I, alongside my advisor Simone Stumpf, will be presenting our paper on investigating the intelligibility of a computer vision system for blind users. This work was based on my master's dissertation work, which was in collaboration with Microsoft Research Cambridge. I'll be going through the background and the procedure of the study, and Simone will summarize our findings. Worldwide, approximately 1.3 billion people live with some form of visual impairment, and this is according to the World Health Organization. Researchers have already begun looking at how AI systems can make the world more accessible for blind people. This includes technology that supports the identification of text, signs, currency, as well as helping with spatial awareness and navigation. A popular example is a Seeing AI app, which allows users to take a photo of an object and the computer vision technology will identify what the object is. This research focuses on what we learned when we deployed a system called Project Tokyo. The system is a computer vision HoloLens headset designed for blind people to help them identify those around them. In order to do this, first the HoloLens uses computer vision to identify those around you. Then it will communicate what it can see using auditory sounds. If the system has been trained to identify the person, it will call out their name. It includes 4 cameras inside the headset and bone-conducting earphones to provide the spatialized audio. The main AI models are a pose model that detects a person's landmarks, for example, their shoulder points, and an ID model which uses facial recognition to identify who a person is, if this person has been registered in the system. There's a lot of research on explainable AI, and the reason for this is when a user understands how a system works, it improves user experience and how the system is used. One way researchers have tackled this issue is by providing transparency. So this refers to the ability of the system to explain itself to the user. However, for this study, we were interested in intelligibility and we wanted to understand the user's ability to build an appropriate mental model of the system. We know from previous research, users build mental models of how a system works as they explore and interact with it, or through explanations. Mental models can also be explicitly influenced by offline instructions or tutorials. So what makes this system interesting to study? One of the reasons is information about the Project Tokyo system is provided in a continuous stream and the sound it makes changes depending on where the HoloLens camera is being directed at. So this makes the interactions the user has with the system more dynamic and differs to the typical mouse and screen interaction or simply communicating individual decisions. Also, whereas many studies on intelligibility have used visual cues to explain the workings of a system to the user, some blind users cannot use visual explanations, so it's interesting to study intelligibility from a different perspective. For our study, we investigated what happens if we give users basic or enhanced intelligibility instructions of the system. Our research questions were as following. RQ1, what is the effect on user experience? RQ2, how much, what type, and what level of knowledge do blind users gain of the system? And RQ3, what is the effect of intelligibility on user interactions and use of the system? All of the participants in the study were provided with basic intelligibility instructions of the system. The information included declarative information, which mapped inputs to the system's outputs. This involved playing each audio sound the system made to the user and explaining what the headset could see when it made that sound. So we would tell them that when you hear the person identify a knock, which sounds like this, it means the device detects that a person is directly in front of you. When you hear the face identify a knock, which sounds like this, it means that not only is a person standing in front of you, but the system has also detected their face. And finally, the woodblock sounds help you find a face. They sound like this, and they get higher in pitch as the camera aligns with the person's face. When you hear the snap sound, which sounds like this, it indicates that the system has found the person's face. However, only 7 of the 13 participants received the enhanced condition instructions. These explanations provide information about the internal workings of the system, how it makes predictions, and debugging information when things go wrong. So, for example, we would tell them that the system needs to see the eyes, ears, and nose of a person to positively identify him or her. The HoloLens will read out the name of a recognized person each time your gaze crosses the midline of the person who is directly in front of you, and the system remembers where people are and will assume that they stay in the same place for 10 seconds since it last saw them. The study included 3 stages, which all lasted for 15 minutes, a pre-session familiarization stage, a mock networking event task, and a post-task interview. We recruited 13 participants who were all registered blind but had different levels of visual abilities, so some of the participants had light perception whereas others did not, and most of the participants were born with a visual impairment. The pre-session stage involved familiarizing users with the HoloLens, so they would be told how to wear the headset. They then received different instructions about the system depending on whether they were in the basic or enhanced intelligibility group. Once the system was explained to the participants, they took part in a networking event where they were asked to use the device to find a Microsoft recruiter so that they can network with her. We chose the networking task because it encouraged the participants to use the features of the system to find and identify the recruiter. For the task, we placed a camera in the room so that we could observe how the participants used the system at a later stage. To make the task realistic, we also included Confederates who played the role of people networking during the event. We also had someone in the back of the room demonstrating the code jumper, and the Confederates and the recruiter had a script to ensure each participant experienced similar events. In the post-task stage, we measured the user's experience of using the HoloLens to find the recruiter with the NASA TLX. The NASA TLX gave us the user's subjective task load ratings. We then measured the level of understanding the user had of the system by using scenarios. So, for example, we would ask the participant, if you were teaching Tom, who is blind, how to use the system, what sort of things would you tell them? This was then followed up with further probes to extract information if detail was missing.
Hello, I'm Simone and I will be taking you through the results. Our analysis showed that in relation to RQ1, there was no strong effect of different instructions, either basic or enhanced, on the experience of the blind users. We found no differences between the two groups of participants in the system accuracy, the time they took to locate the recruiter, or the perceived task load. In terms of NASA TLX scores, low is good, except when looking at performance. We see here that while generally the group with enhanced instructions scored lower and therefore better than the group with basic instructions, there was little difference between their responses. As they gave their responses, some participants gave justifications. It seems that some felt that the headset was quite heavy to wear, that the time they had for the task was too short, and that there were some problems with using the system due to misidentifications and the unclear direction of the sounds. However, overall, these results are promising, as they indicate that even with little instruction, the system is viable for use. We turn to investigating the kinds of knowledge that the participants had. Inspired by Kulesa et al.'s mental model score, we coded their interview responses into declarative knowledge, knowing that, and structure and procedural knowledge, knowing how. For more details about this coding scheme, please see the paper. Declarative knowledge includes knowing what these sounds mean, while structural means knowing how the system works. These indicate a shallow versus a deeper mental model, respectively. Procedural knowledge includes knowing what to do or how to behave to make the system work. We scored each response as +1 if it was correct and -1 if it was incorrect. For RQ2, to investigate participants' mental models, we found there were no differences between the group that received basic instructions versus the group that had enhanced instructions for declarative knowledge. But participants in the enhanced group had significantly higher scores for structure and procedural knowledge than participants in the basic group. I'll now go into details about each knowledge type. We taught declarative knowledge, what the sounds meant, to both groups, so we weren't surprised to find no difference. However, we were surprised how low participants scored. Frequently, they got their facts about how the system worked wrong, as can be seen by this quote. Spin his head moves his head from left to right to check what happens with the sound. If the sound stops after a certain degree, he can orient the amount of degrees which the person is situated. He can kind of get the dimensions of the person. So even teaching people the basic facts doesn't guarantee that they will build an appropriate mental model. On the other hand, we explicitly taught structure knowledge to participants who received enhanced instructions. Again, it's therefore not surprising that they had significantly higher scores in structural knowledge. However, this kind of mental model is helpful to identify the cause if something goes wrong with the system, as in the following quote, that it may be the case that a person that the system is not trained on is standing between you and the recognized person, so I would tell him to watch out for that. It also appears not to be easy to construct from declarative knowledge alone or from exploring the system. We never taught anyone how to act or behave when using the system, so it was surprising that participants who received enhanced instructions were able to get this right, like the quote shows. In relation to where to look, if a person to be identified was standing in front of a sitting person, straight up and above to recognize your face, he would have to judge your height and then towards it. They did this much more so than participants who got basic instructions, and possibly they were able to use structural knowledge to integrate procedural knowledge into their mental model. In relation to RQ3, we think we also found some evidence that enhanced instructions were better for picking good strategies for working with this system. For example, user 6 displayed a common strategy among basic instruction users to explore the space and find the recruiter. They walked around at a normal pace, shown in blue, while moving their heads side to side, shown in yellow. In contrast, user 4 displayed a strategy common to the enhanced instruction group. They walked around slowly, shown in red, stopping, shown in white, then using horizontal and occasionally vertical gaze movements, shown in orange. This is much better for using the system effectively. First, this head movement increases the field of view of the computer vision system. Second, the participants can use the spatialized audio to get better location information. And third, there's a higher chance of triggering the ID announcements as targets cross the midline of vision. Of course, our results are not without limitations. In our study, we had a small sample of blind users who were given only 30 minutes to become familiar with and use the system. It would be interesting to see how longer exposure to the system would affect system use, and this might also allow us to study how instructions could be delivered differently. Working with blind users is challenging though, as it's difficult to recruit large numbers of participants, and varying visual abilities mean that the existing strategies for exploring space might also differ. Overall, we have shown promising avenues for making a wearable computer vision system for blind users intelligible and usable for blind people. We encourage system designers and developers to impart structural and possibly procedural knowledge early on to users, as this can improve troubleshooting and working better with the system. To conclude, we also see opportunities for future work in this area. These findings could generalize to other systems such as autonomous vehicles that can't rely on visual explanations of a continuous stream of information. How to extract and measure the extent and contents of mental models is still an open research area. This also needs to be coupled with further investigations into how to design for intelligibility in addition to making AI systems transparent. Thank you for listening to our talk.